Let's talk America. Joe Biden has enraged Camp Trump, if you like, by authorizing Zelensky, the Ukrainian leader, to fire American-supplied Storm Shadow missiles deep into Russia. They've got about a 200-mile range. This will escalate the war. Putin is furious. He's saying, does Biden want World War III? Because that's what's coming. And Donald Trump Jr. and various other people close to the president-elect are saying that Biden laid off this. He deliberately postponed this till after the Democrats lost the election. And now he's authorizing this to undermine Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, of course, wants to de-escalate the conflict and possibly, he says, get a peace deal in the pipeline. So he wants to do that quickly, but that is not going to be helped by this diktat from President Biden to say, go right ahead and start firing these American missiles deep into Russia. Lots to discuss here. Let's talk to, from the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, Erol Morkoc. Hello, Errol. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you as always. Are you by any chance in London this time?
No, I'm still in Davis.
You're still in Davis. You live in Davis, don't you?
No, just part-time. Okay. I refuse to remove my Trump signs until my neighbor takes down his Biden sign. When the Biden sign comes down, I go back to London.
So it's a long standoff. It could go on for a long time. Seriously, what do you make of all this? I mean, all right, my interpretation, or let's put it this way, a lot of people interpret this, is that Joe Biden and the Democrats, so hate Trump, so want to undermine him, that they're prepared, in a way, to potentially sacrifice many lives by authorizing Ukraine, Zelensky, to fire these American Storm Shadow missiles deep into Russia. Putin already furious. Donald Trump and his camp are also furious. But if this is political game playing, I mean, lives are at stake here. And there's no doubt, because Biden was asked many times before the election, will you authorise this, will you authorise this, and held off. Now they've lost the election, suddenly it's like, go right ahead, Volodymyr, fire those missiles into Russia. I mean, if it's true that he's prepared to play this kind of political game, it's just wrong, isn't it?
Well, it begs the question. I'll at least be the diplomat here and look at it from Joe Biden's perspective, just for the sake of us going through this.
Yeah, I'm not saying it exactly myself, but this is what critics are saying.
And look, on the surface, I totally concur with Don Jr. and how it's being perceived. On the back end, I would say that Joe Biden was in the pocket of big military industrial complex sort of world. So the idea that he was postponing this till after the election is absolutely true. No matter what, this was going to come after the election, and probably this is, in their mind, a response to the North Korean troops that have been entering into the theater of war. Now, if we step back for a second and say, okay, if this was the way things were going, things would certainly keep escalating, then this would be the next logical step. Now, the real question is, why did Joe Biden do it now that he lost? Because the whole thing is going to change. The entire perspective of how the American people will deal with this war is going to change. The leadership's going to change. And this is something that, like it or don't like it, is not going to help détente. And what does détente mean? Détente means peace, and peace is going to obviously have concessions. And nobody likes that Vladimir Putin has taken $10 trillion of resources in the East. Nobody likes any of the circumstances that 1 million people have died. But the idea that we're going to throw peace away just for the sake of ratcheting this up to a never-ending, let's go with outcome. The outcome is only going to get worse if we do this. It's very detrimental to the future U.S. foreign policy, but it was a continuation of the last 4 years, and certainly something they had planned to do after the election regardless. It's going to be up to Donald Trump now to see how he can ameliorate this without causing too much problems, and also realizing that the U.S. has been backing Ukraine, and we're not here to give away everything we fought for. So it's the real balancing act goes to President Trump, and now he's been given a much more interesting deck of cards to play with. It doesn't help us whatsoever, but I do think Vladimir Putin will show restraint, at least until Donald Trump comes online, because certainly things are going in the right direction, and it would be awful if this is what caused things to go completely, catastrophic.
So Donald Trump Jr. tweeted this: the military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure they get World War III before my father has a chance to create peace and save lives. Got to lock in those trillions. Life be damned, imbeciles. Also, Donald Trump's former Director of National Intelligence, Richard Greene, and one of his closest foreign advisors now, he's tweeted, no one anticipated that Joe Biden would escalate the war in Ukraine during the transition period. This is as if he is launching a whole new war. Everything has changed now. All previous calculations are null and void and all for politics. The one thing I would say, Errol, is in their ham-fisted way, in Joe's customarily incompetent way, he's actually handed Donald a pretty useful tool insofar as, I agree with you, Putin won't do anything until Trump is in the White House on January the 20th. Then Donald will be able to say, well, Vladimir, right off the bat, I'm going to stop them firing those missiles into Russia. That's a good launch pad for our talks, right? I mean, I'm right, aren't I?
Yeah, no, that's a perfectly salient thought, and it's absolutely correct. I mean, it will be something that Donald Trump will have to pull back from the battlefield because, of course, you cannot be striking into the territory of the Russian Federation. I mean, it just can't. It can't happen in a sustained amount. Maybe in one-off circumstances or here and there they can let it go. But this is not, Afghanistan. This is a serious nuclear power with a serious air force. And the last thing we need right now is more war. So I think it's going to be very tough for Donald Trump to act inside the current framework. He's going to, I think, take the whole thing on his own, kind of pull it apart, maybe use this as a bargaining chip that was given to him unintentionally, as well as probably create a very robust security guarantee for the rest of Ukraine, including economic rebuilding. So right now, I agree with every one of the critics of this who you've mentioned, because during the transition, it's only going to make it worse. It's going to make it more difficult for our country to find peace. And keep in mind, 1 million people have died. 1 million human beings. Yeah, that's what we're trying to stop.
And thousands are dying every day. David Sachs, Trump donor, tech millionaire, he tweeted, President Trump won a clear mandate to end the war in Ukraine. So what does Biden do in his final 2 months in office? Massively escalate it. Is his goal to hand Trump the worst situation possibly? And a final, well, this is not a tweet, this is a statement from the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. He said that Biden's decision will provoke a new spiraling of tensions. So if Biden and the Democrats are playing politics here, trying to undermine Trump, trying to make it difficult, as Donald Trump Jr. says, at the expense probably of tens of thousands of lives. I mean, that's just evil.
It's pretty beyond the pale if that's indeed what is going on. And certainly it doesn't inspire confidence based on the circumstances. Right now, I think that as much as we might not like it, the ball is in Zelensky's court. Zelensky's going to be the one to choose, along with Budanev and the rest of the top brass there, if they're going to actually deploy these weapons. And if they do, it will come back to them in a certain way. I'm not saying retaliatory, but it will change the negotiation landscape that the U.S. president will have to deal with. So the fact that they've done this in the final hour certainly doesn't inspire confidence, and it certainly speaks to their willingness to play games with lives, something they've been willing to do in Afghanistan and Iraq and now here in Ukraine, and it's something that the American people have voted ardently against, and myself included, hoping that this will be the last in the escalations as we move towards détente, despite people hating that word. People hate peace for some reason. People want to have wars, but not me, and not the guys who I know who voted for Donald Trump. So that's what we're hoping for.
Well, the good news is, Errol, that President Biden's morality bypass surgery has been entirely successful by the sound of it. Errol, always a pleasure to talk to you. Great to have you on the show. Erol Morkoc there, spokesperson for the Republicans Overseas organisation here in London.